This is the 411 with Jessica Washington and Angela Johnson. This week, we're sitting down with Gevin Reynolds, former speechwriter for Vice President Kamala Harris, to discuss VP Harris's tenure and the upcoming elections.
Welcome, Gevin.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to ask you about a recent New York Times Magazine piece that came out talking about how the fact that the country hasn't really embraced her. What do you think is behind her public perception problem?
Having spent so much time, working for the vice president and on the incredible team that she's assembled, I got to travel with the vice president and see her up close, right? See a side of her that I think too many Americans don't get to see. And, my experience with the vice president, showed me just how much of a fighter that she is for the American people. You talk about, the work that she's done, on healthcare to help lower costs, for prescription drugs with the president. You talk about what she's done on the economy to help create jobs with some of these historic investments. You talk about, what she's done on the world stage, right, as a leader. I think it's incredible, and I think she often talks about the work that she's doing alongside the president. She might be the first, in this case, the first woman, the first black woman to hold, the position that she's held, but I think she knows that she won't be the last. I recognize that many people just haven't been able to see perhaps the vice president as I've been able to see her, but what I've seen of her is that she's a fighter and that she cares deeply, about the work that she and the president are doing, every single day for the American people.
The truth is she has done a lot that impacts the black community.
Definitely.
And there were some people in the piece who kind of came to her defense, including newly appointed California Senator LaFonza Butler.
Right.
She called all that negative talk disrespectful, and I agree. But what are we hearing? Yeah. What are we not hearing?
Sure.
I'm sorry, that we should be.
Right. Those who hold public office, right? When things are going well, they get half of the credit, and when things aren't going well, they get double the blame. I think it's important to recognize that, the president and the vice president wish they could wave a magic wand, right, and make that inflation go away, bring down gas prices, whatever prices we're talking about here. There are limitations to that. But for the things that they can do, they've done, right? You talk about healthcare costs, especially in the black community, right? We know that black Americans are more likely than white Americans to suffer from diabetes. And, through the Inflation Reduction Act, the vice president and the president, made it such that now seniors on Medicare are not going to be paying more than $35 a month for their insulin, for example, right? And I think sort of similarly, right, when you talk about, what this vice president has done in terms of public health and healthcare, the maternal health crisis has for so long been a crisis afflicting so many black women in this country. Black women are more likely than white women to die related to complications of pregnancy. And I think up until this vice president came to office and this president came to office, we've seen that issue go ignored, essentially. And I think the vice president, I've seen her, and when I was with her, I saw her elevate that issue to a national priority, which it deserves, right? And she has met with doulas. She's met with black female doctors. She's met with mothers who have lost their children, perhaps due to the maternal mortality crisis. And I think that's something we've never really seen before happening at the White House, right? And even from a policy perspective, this administration made it such that Medicaid now, women can get Medicaid coverage postpartum, not just for 2 months, which was the case before, but for 12 months. And that's not something that I think most Americans out there know about or are talking about. And so I think it's important that we surface that.